This is our next unit. It's called Ecology. This is our vocabulary list, so follow along, fill in your vocabulary slides. And don't forget that half of your grade is going to be the graphic organizers. So this is our home page for Ecology. You can get to this page from the table of contents. Just click on Ecology. Over here on the left is our vocabulary list. And over here on the right is the stuff that you guys will be doing during this unit. So our first word is ecology. So eco kind of refers to the environment, then ology is the study of. So if we combine them to ecology, that is the study of the environment, and ecosystems. And this is relationships. So this is how living things and non-living things interact to allow life. A good graphic organizer for this word would be to kind of compare the different levels of organization within ecology. So from the smallest thing, we have organisms. Organisms come together to make populations. Populations form communities. And communities end up making ecosystems. And then those ecosystems and something called biomes come together to make a biosphere, which is our next word, biosphere. So this word bio means life, and then sphere kind of just refers to a circle. So you can see here, this is the only known biosphere that we have, which is the Earth. So the biosphere is pretty much anything that contains life on it. Probably some more out there, we just don't know of any yet. So maybe a good graphic organizer here would be to reinforce the living things that are found here on Earth. So remember, there's 5 kingdoms of life. There's plants, there's animals, there's fungi, there's protista, and then there's bacteria. Our next word is ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a combination of all the living and non-living things within an area. So the non-living thing is the important part here because it kind of what determines, or it's kind of what makes the ecosystem. So things like temperature and how much rain it gets and the type of soil determines what kind of living things can be in that area. And these right here are some biomes, but they make up the ecosystem. So there's like a desert ecosystem or biome, savannas, which is like a grassland, rainforest, which you should know what that is, a tundra. So the closer you get to like the North Pole, you might have tundra, some called a taiga, and this is like those traditional pine cone forests where it snows a lot. Obviously marine ecosystem out in the ocean. Maybe one called a chaparral, which is kind of like what they have in the Mediterranean or in California. And there's more of these. You guys should have learned these in geography, but you could always look it up on the internet. What I would do for a graphic organizer here would be to pick 5 ecosystems or biomes and kind of compare them. What makes a desert a desert? What makes the taiga a taiga? And that'll help you learn a lot, and it'll also help in your geography class. Our next word is community. So community are all of the living things in a certain area. So in this picture here, you see we have trees, and we have lizards and birds and some sort of antelope, maybe a horned frog, grass. So all these living things, when they come together in a certain area, that is called a community. And we have a community in the school, right? Our school has humans. We have a lot of mice, and then the cats are there to eat the mice. There's spiders all over the place. There's cockroaches, a lot of bacteria that live around here. There's grass outside, some trees. So all the living things within our school, well, that would be a community. One thing about a community is they make up food chains and food webs, which you should already know a little bit about. So a really good graphic organizer here for community would be to compare these two words, community and population. Population is our next vocab word, but they like to ask you the difference between these two on your STAR test. So a population is a group of the same species. So a herd of cattle, that is one population of cattle. Here in school, we have, population of humans. We have population of cockroaches. We have a population of mice. And then when all those populations come together, well, that would be a community. So once again, I'd probably use that same graphic organizer, compare community to population, because it's really important that you understand the difference between that. And if you've noticed, we're kind of going backwards from when we started talking about um, ecology. So our biosphere is the biggest one. Ecosystems a little bit smaller. So this is living and non-living things. Community, just the living things. Now we're into a population, which is a single species. And then the next word is an organism, which would be one individual of that species. So you're an organism. A single plant would be an organism. Your dog is an organism. Um, so maybe a good graphic organizer here would be to do the levels of organization in an individual. And this would be a review of sorts. Biomolecules come together to make cells, cells make tissues, tissues make organs, organs make systems, then systems come together to make that organism. Our next word is the 10% rule. And this is a little bit of math here in biology. So what this 10% rule means is that in an energy flow, like this energy pyramid or a food chain or something like that, 10% of the available energy from one will go up to the next level. So here I have my producers, right? Well, my primary consumers eat those producers, but only 10% of the energy in this producer level will be transferred to those primary consumers. And you're going to have to do a little bit of math here. So if I have 1,000 calories, which is a measurement of energy here, right? In the producer level, only 10% of that 100 calories will be passed on to the next level. Well, you see these are rabbits. They eat those carrots. And then maybe this fox will come by and eat those rabbits, but only 10% of that energy here will be transferred up to that next level. So that's the 10% rule. And you got to be able to do math. It's easy to go up. You just move the decimal place over to the left one, as you go. So I had 1,000, now I moved it over, now I have 100. And you could do it with other numbers like 954. Well, if I go up, that would be 95.4, and if I go up, that would be 9.54. You should also be able to go down. To go down, you just increase it by one decimal place. So I went from 10 to 100 to 1,000. So a good graphic organizer here would be to draw that food pyramid showing that 10% rule, showing how the numbers change as you go up. And I would use a number different than something divisible by 100, just so you get used to that math. And you guys should know this, right? The levels: primary producer, secondary or primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Next word is autotroph. This has been used before. Auto means self. Troph is feeding levels. Well, autotrophs make their own food. These are our producers. They're plants. They do photosynthesis. So that means they make their own glucose. So they don't have to eat to get their food. That's what an autotroph is. I would compare autotroph to heterotroph for my graphic organizer here. So here's a new word, heterotroph. Hetero means other, right? So you feed on other things to get your glucose. So here I have that autotroph, that producer. Well, this zebra is going to eat that grass, so that zebra is a heterotroph because it has to eat the grass to get that glucose. So this right here would be a producer. That zebra would be a primary consumer, and then maybe this lion will come by and eat that zebra, so that lion would be a consumer or secondary consumer, or maybe a tertiary consumer. So heterotroph, maybe compare the different levels of consumers. You guys should already know this, but remember I have primary producers or producers, then I have primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers are at the top of that food chain. Our next word is detrivore, and this one's in here because you guys already know a lot of these. You know what a carnivore is and an herbivore, but sometimes you guys haven't covered this one, detrivore. A detrivore has to eat dead things. So, it feeds on rotting plants or animals like flies. Flies might feed on something dead, maggots. So anything that eats something dead is a detrivore. Like vultures, we have a lot of turkey vultures around here that like to eat the roadkill on the side of the road. We could consider them detrivores. Now, they're not really decomposers, so a good graphic organizer for a detrivore might be to compare a detrivore to a decomposer. So remember, decomposers break things down to get nutrients out of it, like bacteria and fungi are your biggest decomposers. Well, detrivores actually eat those dead things like worms, and crabs and stuff. So they get the nutrients by eating those dead plants and animals. Now we're going into relationships, and there's 3 of them. The first one is called parasitism. So the key word here is a parasite. You guys should know what parasites are. Like a good example is a mosquito. They suck your blood. That's how they get fed. Ticks, hopefully you guys have never had them. They will bury their head in your skin and suck on your blood. Tapeworms. Now I have those dog intestines in my classroom. You can see actually some tapeworms in it. And they would eat the food that you ate because they would live in your intestines and steal your nutrition. But what parasitism is some sort of organism feeds on you, so it hurts you to help itself. So that's parasitism. So that mosquito is hurting you to help itself. Parasitism hurts one to help one. So for the graphic organizers here, I would compare the 3 types of relationships, and we'll go over these 2 in a minute. Here's a tapeworm getting pulled out of a dog. So these tapeworms live inside your intestines, and here they're pulling it out of that dog's butt. So our next word is mutualism. Our keyword here is mutual. So mutualism, or a mutualistic relationship, it benefits both organisms. So in this example, this ant provides some safety for these things called aphids, and these aphids wound up providing food for that ant. So here's a good picture. I like it. So mutualism it benefits both. Parasitism hurts one to help one. And then there's a third one, which is our next word, called commensalism. What commensalism does is it helps one, has no effect on the other one. So in a commensal relationship, one organism is benefited and the other one has no benefit, but it's also not hurt. So here's a good example of it. Maybe you've seen some sharks swimming around in some video and you see these fish following along. Well, these fish are called remoras, and they're just tagging along because they're going to eat the scraps that come out of this shark's mouth. Now, some other types of fish might be mutual. That might clean out the gills or clean out the teeth or something like that. So that would be like a mutual relationship if it's helping the shark. But in this case, they're just hanging around to eat scraps. So it's helping them, the remoras are getting food, but it's not really hurting or helping that shark at all. Commensal relationship. So another example of a commensal relationship might be, you might see like a hippopotamus swimming across a river, and there might be some sort of bird or another animal sitting on top of that hippo. Well, that hippo is helping that bird get across the river, and it's not really hurting or not really helping that hippo in any way. That'd be a commensal relationship. So mutualism benefits both. Now going back to that hippo relationship, maybe you'll see like a hippo or something with a bird that lives on its back, and it's like eating the biting flies. Well, that's a mutual relationship. That bird gets food, and it helps that hippo because it's taken away those flies that are biting it, or rhino or something like that. That'd be a mutual relationship. Benefits both. Commensal relationship helps one, has no impact on the other one. And then parasite or parasitism benefits itself by hurting something else. So here's tick, it might live on that dog. And then our last word is chemosynthesis. Now you guys know what photosynthesis is. It's making that glucose using sunlight as the energy source. Well, not all living things have access to sunlight, so some living things have developed a way to produce glucose through something called chemosynthesis, or it uses chemicals to make that energy. And this happens a lot at the bottom of the ocean, and some called archaeobacter, or these extremophiles that live in really extreme environments. Well, they might not have access to that sunlight, but they still need to be able to make that glucose or that sugar. So it's done via chemosynthesis. So maybe a good graphic organizer here would be to compare chemosynthesis with photosynthesis. Now, once again, with these graphic organizers, I want you to make your own. You're not going to copy and paste a picture from the internet. You've already done that. But make your own, like use a table or some sort of Venn diagram or some sort of other visual representation that helps you learn this information. All right, so that's all your vocab. Make sure you complete it. This will be a grade. You got about a week to get it done before I grade it. This will be a long unit. We have a lot to do in here, and there's a whole bunch of different sections of ecology. Good news is it's pretty easy. You guys already know quite a bit of ecology from middle school and even before that.